Good afternoon to all. My name is Dr. Frederick Gooding, Jr., Chair of the Race and Reconciliation Initiative. Before we go any further with our program, we would like to simply respectfully acknowledge all Native American peoples who have lived on this land since time immemorial. TCU especially acknowledges and pays respect to the Wichita and affiliated tribes upon whose historical homeland our university is located. Welcome and greetings once again. My name is Dr. Frederick Gooding, Jr., aka Dr. G, and I simply would like to welcome you to the space of Race and Reconciliation. TCU's Race and Reconciliation Initiative, or RRI, has one mission with three components: to study TCU's relationship with slavery, racism, and the Confederacy. We actually plan to share our first year survey report with the public on the 21st of April. So if you are interested in learning how we can continue this conversation, do be sure to check out our website for updates, or be sure to join us in person on the 21st. We are an academically based, research-focused initiative, and so if we receive any questions outside of our scope, we will simply direct them to the appropriate sources. But do realize that this topic today is part and parcel of our efforts to create community and have discussion that will provide critical perspective and deepen our understanding that we hope will ultimately push us forward and toward action and healing, or in other words, reconciliation. Today's topic is a dialogue of TCU's efforts to reconcile with Native Americans. Before we get any further along the track, I would like at this point in time to bring on our dear Provost, Teresa Dahlberg, who will properly introduce our guest panel.
Thank you, Dr. G. So today, TCU, through the Race and Reconciliation Initiative, takes up a topic that we have not formally addressed, and that is our relationship with Native American nations and peoples. We are honored also for the first time in our history to have with us heads of state from two Native American nations and a former tribal council member from a third. Recognizing that tribes are nations in a government-to-government relationship with the United States, it is indeed a great honor for us to have these accomplished leaders guide us in this exceedingly important dialogue. TCU is located on the historical homelands of the Wichita affiliated tribes, as you just heard. We are privileged to reside on these lands, and it is therefore with the deepest respect that we welcome to our university, Terry Parton, president of the Wichita and affiliated tribes. We extend the same deep respect for Anita Batisse, chairwoman of the Alabama Coshada tribe of Texas, a tribe that has resided in what became the state of Texas since the 1780s, long before TCU came into existence. We are also honored to have with us Waylon Hunga of the Wallapai tribe, a nation currently located in northwestern Arizona, but which has resided in the larger regions for centuries. Each of you have honored with us by participating in this dialogue. We give you our warmest welcome, and it is with open and respectful hearts and minds that we look forward to learning from you. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Scott Langston. I'm an instructor in the religion department, and I'm also the university's Native American Nations and Communities liaison. And it is my honor to moderate this session today. And I want to thank our provost for those gracious words, and especially for her support in opening doors at TCU for us to have these dialogues and to empower Native Americans on our campus, and for us to develop healthy relationships with Native American peoples. I also want to thank the Race and Reconciliation Initiative, and especially Dr. G, for creating space to include Native Americans in this discussion. It is apparent that if we are going to discuss race and reconciliation at TCU, we must include Native American peoples. They are an essential part of this conversation. And so it is therefore our great pleasure to have our three guests with us here today. And I want to ask our guests, Terry Parton, Anita Batisse, and Waylon Hunga, to go ahead and turn their cameras on and get ready to engage in this dialogue. We're going to be discussing this particular question, and that is, how can TCU reconcile and develop healthy relationships with Native Americans in general and with your tribe specifically? And we are asking each of our speakers to take about 10 minutes each to address this question, to give some opening remarks on this. And after they have addressed it, we will then open this up for conversation and for dialogue. And we invite the audience to submit questions. I believe you can do this through the Q&A feature, although if I'm mistaken on that, please, Dr. G or Marcellus, correct me on that. So we also want to thank the Creator for giving us a good day today. It's beautiful weather here in Fort Worth, and He's given us this good space to have this very important conversation. So I'm going to first introduce President Terry Parton, and she will go first with this conversation. Then I will introduce, after she is finished, I will introduce Anita Batisse, and she will have her 10 minutes. And then I will introduce Waylon Hunga and hear what he has to say. So let me see if, yes, we're all here now. So Terry Parton has been president of the Wichita and affiliated tribes since 2012, being the tribe's first elected female president. She received a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration from Southern Nazarene University and a Master of Jurisprudence in Indian Law from the University of Tulsa. The Wichita and affiliated tribes consist of the Wichita proper, the Waco, the Keechai, and Tawakanee bands, and is headquartered in Anadarko, Oklahoma, with an enrollment of over 3,400 citizens. So President Parton, it is with the utmost respect that we will turn the program over to you for the next 10 or so minutes, and we are eager and honored to hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Scott. And just kind of, we're taught to, before we start anything, that we offer prayer. Would it be proper for me to take part of my 10 minutes and ask?
Absolutely, please do.
Right. Thank you. So if you bow your heads, I'll pray. Gracious Most Heavenly Father, dear Lord, we thank you for this beautiful day that you've given us, dear Lord. And we thank you today, dear Lord, for this opportunity to speak with Texas Christian University, dear Lord, about the humble beginnings of our people, Heavenly Father, where we've been from Texas to Oklahoma to Kansas and all of the other tribes that are involved today, dear Lord. I pray that all of us would keep an open mind and make this a good thing, dear Lord, between our the university and our tribes and our acknowledgement for our people, Heavenly Father. And we just thank you, dear Lord, for all the blessings that you give us, dear Lord. Just continue to watch over our tribe, our communities, and our nation, dear Lord, as we continue to deal with this COVID-19 virus, dear Lord, and as we find ways to connect with each other, dear Lord, through various ways, Heavenly Father. And we just thank you, dear Lord, for all the blessings that you give us each and every day. Watch over us and lead us and guide us and direct us in everything that we do. In Jesus Christ's name I pray. Amen. Thank you for that. Of course, my name is Terry Parton. I'm president for the Wichita and affiliated tribes. And I know I got to know Scott several years ago when we were working on a monument that hangs here in our conference room here at the tribe that TCU had put up in October of 2018. And so we appreciate that acknowledgement for our tribe. And so the question today is, how can TCU reconcile and develop healthy relationships with Native Americans in general and with your tribe specifically? And I think I think that becomes one of the big things is just the acknowledgement of our tribal people. We get, our world has changed from the time that, we were located in Texas. If just a little bit of history about our tribe. Our tribe is the Wichita and affiliated tribes. It used to consist of several bands, which is what the and they were always, those bands include the Wichita, Waco, Keachai, and Tawakoni. They also included several other bands that were, like smaller bands. And so if you ever see our official name, it's Wichita and affiliated tribes, Wichita, Waco, Keachai, and Tawakoni. So if you look from Waco, Texas, all the way to Wichita, Kansas, our tribe roamed within these areas long before all the other tribes came here, specifically in Oklahoma. TCU has recognized our tribe as the homeland, or being on the homelands of the Wichita and affiliated tribes. And I think that's just a start. A lot of times our tribal history is told by people outside of the tribe. They're not always told by the tribe. And I think tribes are getting better at being able to get out and speak about their history. But, a lot of history books and stuff are people that visited our tribes and told about what they saw and stuff and everything. And I think making sure that we're able, kind of like today, we're able to tell the story as the tribe sees it and not how the outside world sees it. I know Dr. Earl Elam had written a book about our tribe. He's from Texas and stuff, and explained how the tribes came from, how we came from Texas when we moved out of Texas in 1859 and moved, and our reservation is here in Southwest Oklahoma. He had told that story, but also, making sure that, whether it's NAGPRA related or history related or anything like that, that our tribes are able to take part in those discussions. And I believe TCU's done a great job at, making sure that our tribe is engaged and stuff with the things that they want to do as far as our history and recognizing our tribe. And we really appreciate their efforts that they've taken on. And I think, just making sure that there's a lot of collaboration with the universities, whether it's Texas Christian University or other universities in Oklahoma or Kansas or wherever your tribe is located. I think that's a big start. It's just making sure that we're sitting at the table and helping those discussions and being able to provide input on the things that are being portrayed about our tribes. I think that's really important because there's two different sides. There's one from the outside and what you see if you're not involved in the tribe and don't know the history and didn't grow up with it. And then there's that side, where we're able to tell our own story. And so I think that's probably all I have to say at the moment until there's some questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, President Parton. I've been hurriedly taking notes, and so maybe we can return to some of these themes as well. Actually, my wife has come out and told me that it looks like I'm looking down, but I'm taking notes. That's what I'm doing.
All right.
But way to go, wife. Yeah, grateful for that. Let me now introduce Anita Batisse, who will be our next speaker. And Anita Batisse is an enrolled citizen of the Alabama Coshada tribe of Texas, and also acknowledges her paternal grandmother's Oklahoma Choctaw heritage. In her 10th year on tribal council, she has served as secretary, treasurer, vice chairperson, and now chairperson for the second time. In 2015, she was the first individual to be elected to this position by the tribal citizenship. She is the fourth woman to serve in this position. She serves her people with respect and patience. Chairperson Batisse represents their concerns on the local, state, regional, and national levels. Her professional experiences range from group sales director, National Park Service ranger, special events coordinator, and public relations specialist. She serves on numerous boards and committees and takes pride in her work on the Alabama Coshada Cultural Committee, the revitalization of the tribal language, traditional storytelling, and specialized craft work are shared with tribal members to keep the rich heritage alive in a modern techno-driven society. In 2010, Ms. Batisse was awarded a fellowship through the Association of Tribal Archives, Libraries, and Museums in researching tribal heritage. Her project, titled Protecting a Legacy, Cultural Expression Through Traditional Storytelling, examines the oral history of traditional Alabama stories and folklore through her maternal grandmother, the late Dorcas Bullock. She would like to express her gratitude for the opportunity to participate this afternoon, which will become the first steps toward understanding and unity. And may I also add to this that there are more than 1,300 members of the Alabama Coshada tribe, and they have the oldest reservation in the state of Texas. So, Chairperson Batisse, we're greatly honored to have you here, and it is with the deepest respect that we now turn the program over to you. And I think you'll have to unmute your mic there. There we go.
Again, indeed, what a beautiful day and a very special opportunity to engage in conversation. President Harton, your words just holds true to my heart. And also, again, what's refreshing about this particular invitation is that we are speaking individually as the true sovereign nations with distinct history, distinct traditions, distinct government. So that's a wonderful opportunity. I also acknowledge Councilwoman Manga, everyone who is on board. It's interesting to see how many people are actually participating. I miss the days of the face-to-face. One day we'll get there soon. One day we'll get there soon. Again, I am full-blooded Alabama Coshada Chata. I get the Chata blood from my father's side, the paternal side. My grandmother was full-blood Alabama. You spoke the traditional language in her home consistently, without hesitation. If you tried to mix the Coshada language, you were definitely corrected immediately. Our people, I always like to say that our roots in Texas are as deep as those longleaf pine trees are tall, and these same roots extend eastward to our ancestral homelands of what are now Alabama. Matter of fact, those who are on this call, the state of Alabama got its name from our people, the other way around. I also wanted to point out that we continue to, we have a little over 10,000 acres in the heart of the East Texas. We're in the northern section of the Big Thicket National Preserve. This has been my home for many, many years. I did leave for a short period of time to go live in Ohio for 20 years and came home. And during that time, what I have seen in my own personal life, and I may be aging myself at this point, but to engage in this conversation, particularly in the early 80s, I was a park ranger in a national monument. Yes, we always had the tours from the professors, archaeologists, and not once would they even consider listening to me for my interpretation. Number one, because I was not educated. I didn't have the extra names, additional letters to my name. All due respect to everyone who's earned it, you've earned it. And number two, I was a minority. And number three, I was a woman. I was at Mound City Group National Monument for almost 8 years. And toward the latter part of my tour of duty there was discussion and buzzing about how we're going to consider, we should consider the Native perspective with regards to the care and acknowledgement of these, just the monuments, the mounds, everything. And it wasn't until that time that I was actually approached by my superintendent to say, Anita, do you have anything to offer? So yes, I did. I wrote a 10-page document, sent it to the Midwest region. And then a few months later, there was a deep discussion with regards to this new program we wanted to enact. It was the beginnings, the nuclei of NECPRA. To see this come full circle, to see the participation, but we do have so much more to go, so much more to do, but to be able to discuss openly, freely, because our history is such that when the missionaries came to this part of Texas, they made it a point to, to have us do away with our traditions, do away with our songs, our dances. Matter of fact, our church, which is on the reservation, is actually built over a stomp ground. The ashes are still there, but we must be able to bring it out and to do the proper way. And this is something that we are doing with regards to our cultural committee. Our elders, they still maintain the wisdom. Those who are fluent speakers, we're starting classes. So there's not only a revitalization of who we are as a people, but also the revitalization and preservation of our language and customs and traditions. Last year, this pandemic pretty much opened up our eyes to see where we must not just wait to further these discussions or classes, particularly with our language, because we did lose 3 fluent speakers to this virus. And my heartfelt condolences to the tribal leaders who may have dealt the same. But it is hopeful where we are today. With interest with the university, this is where we're starting. The dialogue is starting to engage. I offer an invitation to each and every one of you. Once we lift our restrictions for travel, this is a good way. You're doing it from a good heart. I always say be of open mind, heart, and spirit. And one thing I was taught at an early age is that you must learn to listen. Those who know me, and I know there's a couple of people who are participating, know me quite well. I have a tendency to just ramble and ramble. Because you don't learn anything if you don't listen. So that is truly something that we are, you're giving me this opportunity, and I'm very excited. So that's what I have to offer right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And there's several things we can return to and talk about in what you've said if we have time later on. Let me also invite the audience members to submit questions as well, because when we get to that point in just a few minutes from now, we would encourage and welcome any questions from the audience to help us in this dialogue and this conversation here. But let me now introduce our 3rd panelist. This is Waylon Hunga. He is a member of the Wallapai tribe. He received a bachelor's degree in business administration from Northern Arizona University in May 1994. And then in June 1994, he was elected to the Wallapai Tribal Council. There are approximately 2,400 enrolled members in the Wallapai tribe. The Wallapai tribe occupy a 993,000 acre reservation in Northwest Arizona. And Mr. Hunga, it's with a great honor that we welcome you to our campus, and we will now respectfully listen to what you have to teach us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Northwest Arizona, my reservation is about 1 million acres, and it's on the south side of the Grand Canyon, the southwest side of the Grand Canyon, because the Grand Canyon's about 300 miles long, and we're way at the western edge. From our hometown, we have only one town on the res, and you can see the Grand Canyon from our back windows, from our back doors. And it's we're a small tribe, 3,400. I'm sorry, 2,400, a little bigger than Miss Batisse and Miss Parton, but still a small tribe compared to the Hopi and the Apache and the Navajo and the Ottoms, who are in the thousands. So there's 22 tribes in Arizona. And let's see, to speak to the question that you posed of building relations with tribes, I think this is a great step in reading the history of what TCU has done so far in the past 10 years or so. Learning about tribes, I think that's a great step. And I think, of course, there's many steps to take. One of them is teaching the true and accurate history of the United States. I went to school, my reservation doesn't have a high school, so everybody in my age group, and they still do for the most part, they they either take a 50-mile bus ride to one public high school or a 40-mile bus ride in the other direction to go to a public high school, or they go to an out-of-state boarding school. And so those were the choices. I ended up choosing the 50-mile bus ride. I did that all 4 years. And the high school I went to, I remember in history class, they were going to teach about Native Americans in Arizona. And I always remembered it was 1/4 of one page. That was it. The whole history of natives in Arizona. And we are one of the most populous states. One of the highest populations of the Native Americans of all the states. And of course, I think it's 27% of all land in Arizona is Indian reservations. So our presence is, cannot be missed, but they just didn't teach the history. And there's so much that wasn't taught. And it's unfortunate that Hollywood and television and those stereotypes that get developed and perpetuated. And so I think that's the next step, or one of the steps that has to be taken, is teaching the true and accurate history of this country. I think once they do that, or start to do that, then maybe the United States won't be so eager to go into other countries and under the guise of spreading democracy, but also the unspoken ulterior motive of natural resources, or whatever that other country may have that would help fuel capitalism in the United States. So I think if the citizens knew the true and accurate history, then there'd be more pushback before we went into other countries to tell them how the United States does it or how they can do it better. So I think that's a good first step. And again, there's 574 tribes in the United States, and all vary in interest, all various locations. Some tribes are pursuing casino gaming as their economic engine and as a way to fund their governments to provide all their services that they provide for their tribal members. Some tribes are into the extractive industry, where they benefit from the sale of oil and gas and other natural resources. And my tribe, all we do is tourism. We have a lot of customers that come from Las Vegas, because we're close to Las Vegas, that come and view the Grand Canyon. That is literally our backyard. So we're up to our necks in tourism. And so I think learning about the varying interests of the different tribes is also a step that can be taken. I think also the political spectrum. Tribes are small population compared to all the ethnic groups, all the races in the United States. And we just don't have the numbers to vote, to get the attention of senators and Congress people, to let them know, hey, this is what we want. This is our position. This is our perspective. This is our stance. And so that works against us, having small populations. And then even if we did have big populations, natives, we have to knock on that door. We have to kick that door down. We can't take no for an answer. When Washington or the capital, Arizona, Phoenix, says no to our request for funding or support in whatever program or project that it might be, and they tell us no, we shouldn't take no for an answer. We got to go back and kick that door down and keep fighting for our constituents, our tribal members. And so I think that's another area where TCU and all of the efforts that you're pursuing is to learn the political battles that tribes are having to face and having to fight. And when you go against private industry, they if they're very well off and they have a lot of money in the bank, then they've got a team of lawyers and a team of lobbyists and consultants, and they throw everything at you. And so I think that goes under the radar too much, is some of the battles that we are fighting on a political front. I'll go ahead and stop. As a ex-politician, I can talk for days without saying anything. So I'm going to stop myself. Thank you, though, for this opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much, all three of you. These are very stimulating comments, and we want to probe them a little bit further. And again, let me invite the audience to get involved by submitting questions, and we'll try to get as many of the audience questions in as possible. But one thing to maybe get us talking with each other here is the question that we are dealing with today is, how can TCU reconcile with Native American peoples in general and your tribe specifically? And also, how can TCU develop healthy relationships? So do y'all see the effort to reconcile and the effort to develop healthy relationships as being two different aspects of this conversation? And do you see them as being related? Reconciliation, in a sense, looks to the past as well as the present. Developing healthy relationships looks to the present and maybe to the future as well. But do y'all see those as being separate steps? How would you like for us at TCU? What advice would you give us about reconciliation as well as healthy relationships?
This is Terry. I would say that the healthy relationships would probably need to come first. We've got to build that trust between the tribe and the university before we can talk about the reconciliation, because you've got to know our tribe's history and where we've come from and what we've faced in order to help reconcile, to begin the discussions about reconciliation. Because if there's no trust and no relationship between those two entities, then it would be hard to ever get to any type of reconciliation. And I don't know, I seen a comment in the chat box. Carl Kurtz, I like your idea about the free education available to Wichita citizens. That's a good one. Thank you.
May I just add there, you mentioned Carl Kurtz. Carl is an alum of TCU. He's a member of the citizen band Potawatomi Nation. And the teepee that you see behind me here, that is his teepee. He puts it up on the commons here at TCU every October when we have our Native American and Indigenous Peoples Day Symposium. And he teaches classes and he works harder than any of us on that particular day. Thank you, Carl. Chairperson Batisse or Mr. Honga, do you have responses about reconciliation and healthy relationships?
If I may, I totally agree with President Parton. We need to establish a relationship. We need to make those first steps, because there's a tendency to be hesitant from the years of the past. Those of us who grew up in the 70s, due to when AIM brought attention to the plight of our people and what was happening to our people, it brought focus. A renewed focus, actually the first steps of beginning to understand what happened to the first Americans, what happened to the first peoples. And so this was good. And at the same time, in bringing in non-Indians to understand and to appreciate, and also some tribes did allow for participation, actual ceremonial participation. It just kind of went on its own. You have non-Indians who are participating and practicing ceremonies, which, to us in our way, they may be able to go through the motions and go through the actions, but they don't have the words that, Bali Hatakola gave us, with his distinctly our words. So yes, they can go through the motions, but the actual prayer, the words, and that's something that I had to deal with personally on a personal level, because this did happen to my own little Chicpo grandmother. It was difficult, we embraced them, we welcomed them, and then suddenly, they have their own advertisement. This is way before the internet, and it was a little, he just said, it is what it is. But to me, I was very angry about it. But at the same time, to switch this around, the preservation of our language during that time in the early 70s, she and maybe just a handful, well, not a handful, a group of our tribal elders were true fluent speakers. You didn't interact the Kwasati or the Alabama language together. True words, the true words. And so we did have students, interns, to come to the reservation and actually participate. But the way for what was unique is the fact that they stayed in her home. At least two of those students stayed in her home to not only participate as far as recording the words, recording the stories, but to participate on a daily basis as to what our life was like. And I thought this was very, very refreshing, because if you're not in the midst of who we are and what we do, then it's easy enough to, to write it down and read about it. But you have to have that sense of being, to find that sense of place. And I think that's why it's been an adjustment for me to do the Zooms, because again, we're not all in one area where we can participate, engage. But this is something that, again, to go back, I'm coming back the long way. Yes, we need to establish a relationship where we can even discuss reconciliation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hunger. Would you like to address that?
Yes, sure. I also agree with Ms. Parton. And it brings to mind the book I read a while back. It's called Fire on the Plateau. And it's the meat of the story is an attorney working for Peabody Coal Mine Company. He was also working for the Hopi tribe on getting paid by both parties on the same issue. And it's a terrible, terrible story. And that's how they got access to the coal that's on the Hopi reservation. And a book I'm reading now is Making Indian Law. It involves my tribe. And I'm seeing the same themes in there, where you have employees of the federal government who are supposed to be the trust agent of Native Americans, supposed to look out for us, was working almost hand in hand with the railroad company. And again, to get access to water and own the water that's on our reservation today. And that's what they needed for their steam engines. And so I often think to myself, and I say it out loud, is tribes don't trust anybody because of our experiences. And I heard this maybe a year ago, a couple of years ago, someone else say it. They said building relationships can only move at the speed of trust. And that takes time. I don't think you can put a time frame on it, but I agree with Ms. Parton, and that's what needs to take place first.
Okay, so to take that a little bit further, TCU is not like, say, the University of Oklahoma or Arizona, University of Arizona, Arizona State, University of Minnesota, in that we do not have a large Native American population. We are overwhelmingly non-Native, and our students that we are seeking to educate is that they are non-Native, and they come to our university, as do many of our employees and trustees and administrators and faculty, with knowing relatively little about Native peoples. So it seems like education of non-Native students who are going to become future teachers and lawyers and politicians and so on is at the heart of what we as a university do. So I want to ask you, there have been several questions that have been raised from the audience that are along these lines. So let me try to summarize some of them together. What would be some of the essential ideas as well as resources that we should be addressing with our students and using with our students in order to help them have better, healthy relationships with Native American peoples?
This is Terry. I don't know who goes first or who are.
Oh, I know.
If you want to go, do you want to?
No, please, I'm listening. Yes.
No, I didn't know if you were trying to. I just I lost my train of thought. What was the question again?
What are some of the
Yes.
Essential ideas as well as resources that we should be using with our largely non-Native students to teach them how to have healthy relationships with Native peoples once they leave our university?
I think just having an understanding of, and every tribe is different. Every tribe is different. Like I said, like our tribe is from anywhere from Waco, Texas to Oklahoma up to Wichita, Kansas. Our tribe used to, freely roam all of this area, and then, all the other tribes came in, and now we're on a little bitty reservation area in Southwest Oklahoma that we share joint jurisdiction with 2 other tribes. And to understand how much land we lost is part of trying to understand our tribe. And you look at Mr. Hunga, his tribe, you know, they've got millions of acres. Doesn't mean that they didn't experience the same type of loss, but you know, they're different. And you know, she was talking about our language, and we have no fluent speakers. We lost our last fluent speaker in 2016. We have a few that can speak you know, pretty well, but they have nobody to speak to. And one's in his 90s and one's in her late 80s. And you know, our languages are a lot different. I don't know how it is on, I know she spoke of hers, her tribe, but I'm not sure about on the Walpi tribe. And so, you know, trying to learn those individual tribes, but even just recognizing that all tribes are different, and, you know, whatever tribe you are going to be engaged with, whatever area of the country or wherever you're at, that, you know, that they take part in trying to learn you know, the different backgrounds of those tribes and the history of them, so that they can have a better understanding of those tribes. And, you know, going back to the trust and everything like that is, you know, right now with TCU, and again, like Scott, I've known you at least 3-4 years. I think in 2017 is when you approached the tribe. And, you know, those relationships have built and stuff, but what happens when you're gone? Is that relationship still going to be there with the university? And so that's something that we have to think about too. We don't want to go and put a lot of time and effort into a project and stuff, and then all of a sudden you're gone, you leave, or whatever. We want to make sure those relationships with the university are ingrained into the university, and that they truly understand each of our tribes. Again, you don't want to one of the other things I don't want to see happen when you're talking about trust and relationships is, two, we don't want to be talking to a university or any other entity and tell our story, and then it's told, like I think one of them mentioned earlier, it gets twisted around, and it's not the story that we told. There's twist to it, and it becomes not you know, what we try to express. And again, I guess that's going back to having somebody from the tribe tell their story through education classes or whatever. And so, thank you.
And again, to add to that is the fact that you have a Native American advisory circle. One individual is our councilwoman, Melanie Batisse. The fact that you've put this together and you have developed the initiative to move forward. Now, this is, I think it's also an individual choice. There's got to be a sense of respect, deep respect. The way I was always introduced, and I apologize to the tribal leaders, is that, you know, Anoya Anita Batisse, and Yekse Nata, and Tata, Jack, the late Jack Batisse Sr., and Piche Lorraine Batisse. Should have introduced myself properly. I'm Anita Batisse. I am of the Bear Clan. My father is the late Jack Batisse, and my mother is Lorraine. And so that way, you know, you begin to understand, you know, I come from somewhere. I began someplace. And so to the non-Indians, and I always have difficulties when I have to separate. I was also reminded that the Creator, Bali Hartakola, distinctly made us who we are, but we all share the same heart. You know, we all share what's deep within ourselves to be compassionate people to others. And I think that is something that's been missing for a long, long time. You feel it in the atmosphere, so much hate, so much violence. So, but you know, we can always come back together if indeed we have a good heart, and then we can move forward together, mutually, collectively. And this is my hope. This is my hope. Thank you.
Scott, I have nothing further to add to that last question.
Okay, very good. Let me ask from the audience, someone has asked that, I'll just read it. Education is an important part of the reconciliation process. If you were invited to advise TCU faculty on how to honor and integrate Indigenous wisdom into their undergraduate curriculum, then what would you want professors to know or do?
I'll take a shot at that. I would say, in my own opinion, and again, there's 574 tribes. My own opinion is that a lot of tribes have a value of the group of being more important than the individual. And that is, it's something that I never hear anybody talk about. Tribal leaders, not too many academics, really none at all. But it's something that I see being manifested in different tribes. One of my grandparents was Hopi. My wife is Navajo. And I see this idea of the group and group thinking and valuing the group over the individual. I see it being played out in different tribes here in my region. And I've learned that, in the United States is more individualistic. Children are taught to be first, be number one, get to the top, make your mark, get rich, be somebody. Whereas tribes kind of what seems to be getting passed down, because again, it's not spoken, it's just getting passed down by thoughts and behaviors, and adults modeling behavior is that to think of others and to remember your place, you're part of a group. And what I've learned over the years is there's one idea is not better than the other. Individual versus the group, both have their merits and just a different way of thinking, one not being better than the other. But I think that's something that professors could learn about and teach, because it lets you know that your way is not always right. And the creator for Wallapai people, in our belief, didn't have white skin, didn't have blonde eyes or blonde hair or blue eyes. We were not given this little black book that said, if you abide by these 10 laws, these 10 rules, you're going to live for eternity. And so our belief in creationism is not better, it's not worse, it's different. And I think religion is the foundation of so many culture, the values and morals of different groups of people on this planet and what they believe in. And so it's going to follow that the values and the morals of Native peoples are going to be different. And I think that's how you begin to understand that when we see the mountains and the trees and the land and the water, that's how you understand that we look at that and that's alive and it's to be treasured and preserved and not to be desecrated. And so I think that's a very good start, just understanding our perspectives. And again, not that we're better than anybody else, it's just ours, our belief, our outlook.
Thank you. President Parton or Chairperson Batisse?
No, I don't have anything else.
I don't have anything else either.
I don't have anything else.
Okay. Let me ask another question from the audience. Since we have such a low percentage of Native Americans at TCU, should TCU be making more of an effort to reach out and encouraging Native peoples to attend our university?
I'll be quick. Majority of Native Americans across the United States are not living on their reservations. I've seen a number put out by Deb Haaland, now Congresswoman Deb Haaland. I've seen it 4 or 5 years ago, and she said the number of natives not living on their lands was around 80%. And I thought, wow, that's really high. But just a couple months ago, I saw another estimate, or I didn't look to see where the source was, and I can't remember who was putting it out there, but they said that number is around 70%. And I think my colleagues, Ms. Batisse and Ms. Parton, would agree that majority of the natives in their regions do not live on their reservations. And part of it are for economic reasons, high unemployment rates. Others are, again, simple infrastructure, the amenities of water and electricity. My wife's family do not have running water. They got electricity in '94. We're hopeful with all this spending coming out of the Biden administration that they will get water. So we're hopeful. But again, simple amenities that the rest of the United States takes for granted is not seen on a lot of reservation lands and Native peoples.
So this is Terry. I would just say that, like I said, the comment earlier about offering some scholarships to some of the tribes, I think that is a good idea. I mean, it's going to be hard to usually you've got a college that you've picked out and you know where you're going and stuff when you get out of high school. But I think even offering some trips and stuff down to visit TCU and see what there is to offer and stuff like that. Maybe at some kids in 10th or 11th grade, so that it's on their radar and that there may be potentially, a scholarship available if they would like to apply for it. I think that would be a good idea.
And that's something that it should be offered. I believe it should be offered. There are times when those who've lived on the reservation all their life, there's a hesitancy to leave the reservation for education because of the distance. They've never been away from home. I lived off reservation for 20 years because I married a non-Indian. In our traditions way back when, if you marry non-Indian, you have to leave. You remove yourself. And I broke my great uncle's heart. He was our principal chief. He is the one who raised me. But then again, there's love, but that was some time ago. So there's always a hesitancy to leave the reservation to further yourself, either economically, education. And it is true. Majority of our membership, our citizenship, live off reservation. We don't have the enough housing here. We certainly want them to come home. My sister, Rita, who's a truck driver, married to a non-Indian, they're looking to build a home here. She wants to come home. She wants to be here. It is something that can be done. Again, education is your strength. It's what will cause you to reach these heights of just you soar. I'm trying to explain to. I'm having real emotions right now because I think of my grandmother. She didn't get her education. She didn't get her GED until she was 67. My great grandfather, Anita Batisse, he left at the age of he left third grade in order to help in the fields and in the to collect cotton, but yet he taught himself. And I have his oil lamp at home right there at the desk. There was a huge dictionary. I don't know what became of it, but what he didn't know or what he didn't learn, understand, he would go through that dictionary and mark out the lines. And then he traveled to DC and met with then President Calvin Coolidge. He served as interpreter to Chief Sun Key, because during that time, our citizenship, our membership, everything was 175 people because of disease, because of sickness. But now, from where we start, the key is education, formal education, yes, education by learn a trade. That is something as well that we're lacking. But always grow, educate yourself and your mind and your body and spirit. And that's something that I would encourage. But yes, scholarships would be wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you.
Well, thank you. We are about out of time.
No,
But
we just started.
I know. And hopefully, this is a good phrase that you said. We've just started. This is not an end. This is just another step, and we have many more steps. If I could ask each of you just very quickly, because we are, up against the clock here, but could you suggest to us what you think a next step for TCU to take with your tribes or with Native Americans in general? What would be a good next step for us to do? And just like a 10, 15-second response.
I would say, again, learning about the tribal governments and how they operate and some of the challenges that they face at the local and state and federal level, the political challenges. I think that one thing that most Native U.S. citizens don't understand, that a lot of tribes own and operate businesses to raise revenue to fund their governmental services. That's why you see all these casinos nationwide. They're owned by a tribal government. A lot of reservations do not tax. They own and operate businesses. And my tribe, we own a lot of tourism businesses, and that's how we raise revenue. So we're just like everybody else. But I guess understanding that and then learning about that and some of the challenges.
Okay. President Parton?
I think leaving this Zoom meeting and stuff, to me, the next step might take some of the stuff that he just said with and those questions. And then I don't want to forget about the other questions that were in the chat
Oh,
box
yeah.
that maybe we didn't get to, and maybe send those to us, and maybe some of those would spark some more information that we could provide back to TCU on how we could, continue to move forward and build these relationships.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Chairperson Batisse.
Communication, communication, communication. We have started and let's continue. I know with regards to my people, and we will open up our village again and invite you to come here and participate, discuss. Yes, let's just do that. Let's keep this going. Because I'm very, very hopeful. This is encouraging to all of us.
Well, thank all of you. I mean, this has been great, very stimulating. You've taught us a lot. We still have a lot to learn. As one of my good Omaha friends always tell me, we non-Indians must learn from Indian peoples, not just learn about. And so you are our elders, and we respect you for that. And we will learn from you. We want to listen. And I thank you for being here, and I look forward to the continuation of our relationships. I thank the audience for the great questions. I wish we could have asked them all.
I wish I could have seen their faces.
Well, maybe there will be a day coming when we can all be together. So I guess now I need to turn this back over to Dr. G or Marcellus. And thank you again for letting us have this conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Langston, for being our moderator. Thank you for our distinguished guests for joining us today. Thank you for all those in attendance, for your time, energy, and effort, for making time for conversations that are important. Dr. Langston said, my name is Marcellus Perkins. I serve as the Graduate Research Assistant for the Race and Reconciliation Initiative. I come as one, but I stand as 10,000. I can because they did. Briefly, I would like you all to introduce you all to our podcast. Dr. G and I, we are co-hosts of Reconcile This. This is a podcast in which we interview different members of our TCU community who are doing the work day in and day out. We consider them the champions, the people that are dedicating themselves to doing the work of reconciliation. And if you do have access to TV, we do have a quick cameo tonight at Fox at 9 p.m. There will be a brief segment where Dr. G and I will be talking about what reconciliation means, but most importantly, what the podcast serves as a purpose for having dialogue and conversation. So with that being said, again, I thank you all for your time, energy, and effort, and I will hand it over back to Dr. G. Dr. G.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Thank you, Scott. And most especially to all of our guests, all of our panelists. This truly, as I think was mentioned earlier, is an encouraging start to the conversation. I mean, there's no way a conversation like this can be completed in this manner of time. But I think what we want to do is use this as an encouraging point for us to continue, right? Reconciliation is indeed a process. And I think what a lot of people oftentimes have difficulty hearing is how that process can take time. But I do believe what Mama and Grandmama told me, which is that people oftentimes make time for what's important. So I'm very appreciative to all of our panelists for making time to be with us today, to share with us just a glimpse of some of your insights. I'm very appreciative to those who attended. And I do agree that, I mean, the quality of questions were high. And so I think these are all generative, additive signs that there's room for us to continue to grow. And so with that being stated, I just want to state to everyone out there who's been listening and attending that when it comes to reconciliation, ultimately, I cannot promise what eventually will happen during our efforts, but I can pledge to you that we are doing the best we can with what we have. Until next time.